Welcome, everybody, to Orange Hat. And before I get started, I'm going to have to mute myself. So just bear with me. Something happened for a second. Okay, folks. So welcome back. And yes, we are going to be discussing the Terminator franchise today. So that means all the movies, including the ones that some didn't like and some have liked. Now, I am also streaming this on X and YouTube. So, thank you to all who choose to tune in. I will be giving my thoughts objectively, subjectively, and therefore all of them. Before I get going, let's say hello to the chat because I do notice there are some people in the chat. Let's see here, we got Geek Detective Pierce and Vanya. Good to see you. Vanya, my favorite franchise, despite being down. Definitely a favorite of mine. Good thing I stopped after a certain point. Yep, to each their own. Howdy, or Neozo, good to see you. Howdy, Orange, and the good folks in chat. Fun question. If you were in charge of Dark Knight Rises, how would you fix it, change it, remove? It was unfixable because Heath Ledger died. They did what they had to go with what they had. Honestly, I had no problem with it. I didn't. So that's my answer to that one. And it has nothing to do with the Terminator franchise, so that's where I'm going to focus on. In this case, I would not have used Bane and chose a different villain for the plot. That is okay. Well, whatever. You guys are discussing that. I'm here to discuss the Terminator franchise. So, without further ado, let's say we get into it, shall we? So, Terminator 1, starting with the Terminator. I will say this. The Terminator. Hey, Davian Donaldson, good to see you. Before I get started on Terminator 1. Orange, I hope you're well. My three favorites are Terminator 1, 3, and 5th, or 1, 2, and the 5th one. Okay, cool. So, yes, discussing the first one right now. The first one is a classic. It is a horror suspense, so to speak. And one of the things I did like about it was a relentless chase. That's the wonderful thing about a lot of the Terminator movies is that they have the relentless chase. Now, that one, or with the exception being Terminator Salvation, there wasn't much of a chase in that one because it was showing the future war or the beginnings of the future war and whatnot. So there was a slight deviation. However, Terminator 1, all based on Jim Cameron having a freaking nightmare about a relentless machine coming after him. Did you prefer the horror, the first one, or the action-based later films? The first one is iconic because of the horror aspect. It showed that there was this machine that came in that made its presence known, not just by showing up naked, but literally putting its arm through a guy and then taking the clothes and whatnot and being very relentless in its pursuit of its goal, and also showing the systematic flaws of itself. Now, the movie also did a lot more in ways of showing that skin, bad breath, and as the skin rotted due to injury, there was problems because, or it shows the or the inherent flaws of a Terminator's living tissue. Now, unfortunately, um, they did not have the consistency in the second one because as he got up, or as he got shot up, Uncle Bob, it's shown that he can heal from it. However, in the first one, that Terminator, the original Terminator, doesn't heal. Its skin starts rotting to the point where you can actually see flies buzzing around him. And also where a person's like, "Hey, you got a dead cat in there or what?" He was starting to stink because the skin was rotting. Did you prefer, or in terms of chase sequences, which of the first three had the best? Um, the pursuit of the first movie is very straightforward. Close, or a lot more close calls as well. The second one had a lot more width and depth to it. The third one was complete chaos, which is also good. It showed that this was a machine that was willing to do anything to kill its target, and therefore it was willing to not, or it didn't care about what damage it did. Both of them, or all the movies, had their own versions of chase sequences that were good in some ways, including Dark Fate. Or I'm not going to just blindly bash Dark Fate. Dark Fate had moments that were good and moments that were bad, and I will get into those as I get later on into the discussion. However, for Terminator, Terminator had a very relentless machine. This was a machine that bullets wasn't stopping. That no matter how much you shoot it, it just keeps coming. Kind of like what's his name said, or Jason Isaac says in Armageddon. You can fire every nuke you got at her, and she'll just smile at you and keep on coming. That's Terminator. That's Terminator. He'll just, or you could shoot every bullet you got at him, unless you can get yourself a Barrett 50 cal BMG and put one through his chest in 1984. Barrett 50 cal BMGs were not that well available for personal use. The 50 cal BMG, the Barrett 50 cal BMG, was available back in the 80s, especially 84 and whatnot. It's just, it wasn't normally meant for civilian use. How would I compare the T-800 to other fictional robots such as Transformers, Mega Man, Iron Giant, droids from Star Wars, HK-47? I would like to see a T-800 go against HK-47. Astro Boy, Bender from Futurama, Wally. Wally is basically Johnny Five, but a trash compactor version of him. The Terminator is an android or a robot that is essentially very different in ways that it can learn, it can adapt. However, when Skynet sends them out, he doesn't want them to do too much thinking, so he puts them in read only. This Terminator learns a little, or is allowed to learn a little bit with the read only. It's being systematic. It doesn't have the ability to learn. Where in the second one, when we get there, I'll discuss that later on. In one, I like the little details that, or like the loss of hair and eyebrows after exposed to fire. Yes. There is also a great attention to detail. Vanya, you are absolutely correct. Although I wasn't a fan of Terminator 3, I did really appreciate the practical effects, stunt work, and the ending. The ending, Davian, is one of the best parts about that movie, and I will discuss it. If you're not here to listen to it when I get to T3, definitely swing back to the replay, and you'll hear my thoughts on it. Because I do believe that T3's ending was very appropriate. Also, folks, I will be discussing at the end of my stream, after I'm done discussing the movies, how I would have done a Terminator sequel. So while I'm thinking about that, let me create another banner. There. But yes, as for Terminator 1, it was very basic and it was very great. What's scarier, Ultron, the comic version, or Skynet? Skynet. Ultron allowed himself to be killed. Skynet didn't. Skynet fell, sure, but in certain universes, Skynet endured because he was, or it was more than just a pyramid, or more than just a singular advanced Terminator. But also, Ultron is also scarier because he can move through each drone and is more hive mind, where the Terminators are not hive mind. They have to send their data, and that can be disrupted. You can't disrupt the hive mind like Ultron's. So, or they both have their ups or their pros and cons for which is scarier. But the Terminator, he's being systematic, and that sort of relentless, systematic purpose is scary in itself, especially if you have or if it is a being that you can't stop physically, unless you are willing to risk death yourself. I mean, the way he tears through the way he tears through that police station, no caring whatsoever except for the pursuit of his target. Or the very famous line, "I'll be back." A lot of people, or I have talked with a lot of people over the years, and they're like, "Are you threatening me?" No. Terminator never threatened when he said, "I'll be back." He simply said, "I'll be back," and then he came back with a car and blasted it into a freaking police station. He didn't threaten them in T2. He simply said, "I'll be back," and, well, crashed a SWAT van into a Cyberdyne in order to help people. Now, I'm also going to give some cool details in Terminator 2 when I get there, so just bear with me. One of the things I also liked about T1 was the systematic damages that this Terminator was sustaining. The shot in the arm, the shot in the face, and how it had to more or adapt further as it was being damaged and whatnot. So it had to, or once it locked onto Sarah Connor, the proper Sarah Connor, a lot of people said, well, why didn't it continue going back to its normal pursuit of others, Sarah Connors? After it basically was engaged by another person, Terminator, actually, they don't explain this, but once Kyle Reese fired upon the Terminator and it started firing back at him and whatnot, it realized this was a resistance fighter. This thing knows what I am. The Terminator is not stupid. It is incredibly intelligent. It anticipated the presence of a human, or of a human that would potentially hamper it. And once it engaged with that human, it knew that it had the right target. That this Sarah Connor was the right Sarah Connor, and that there was no other need to go after any other Sarah Connor. That was a nice little detail that they don't tell you in the movie, or the book for that matter, because there is a book version of the Terminator. How would I compare Skynet with other fictional AI? Brainiac from Superman. He's more, or Brainiac from Superman is Skynet would have eventually gotten there, space travel and whatnot, but it had no reason to. Ultron, HAL 9000 from 2001. I haven't seen that one. So Agent Smith was a program. Cortana from Halo, didn't care or don't know it too much. Joden from System Shock. I don't know any of these other ones except for Brainiac and Ultron. So yeah, sorry. Legion, however, is interesting because it was a lot more sophisticated, as brief as we understood it from Dark Fate. I would like to do a comparison between Legion and Skynet, but due to Dark Fate not performing well and due to it not being that good of a movie, in my opinion, and I'll explain why, and I'll also explain its pros as well later on. Um, I think that there was, or it still leaves a person like me with a lot of curiosity, you know. But getting back to Terminator, when they finally actually damaged this thing to the point of what's underneath is exposed completely, you see that just because it has been damaged so much, it is still very much a threat. I mean, they've crashed trucks into this thing. They have shot this thing, crashed it into a wall, bashed it with or ran over it with a 18 wheeler, and burned it alive. And yet it still kept coming. Even blown into pieces, it was still going after her. She had to crush it in a hydraulic press. So yeah, that's the only thing that finally stopped her, or stopped it from coming after her. I like how Sarah Connor basically understood that this thing is out there. It can't be reasoned with. It can't, or it can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity or fear or remorse, and it absolutely will not stop until she is dead. That is one of the best lines in the movie. The movie has great writing. It has great music. It has a great presence of showing that this is indeed a villain and this guy is indeed a hero, but which one is which when it came, or when it came to what was going on. Once it found the first Sarah Connor and killed her, okay, that one's revealed to be the bad guy. The future war sequences that they show are actually done pretty well for what they were able to do back in the 80s and early 90s. For the most part, I wanted to see more of the future war stuff when it came to the Terminator franchise, because the future war stuff is basically where it's at. You need to know a lot more about the future war if you want to actually tell a better story that was also in the past. Because after each engagement that Skynet sends a Terminator back in time, he learned that, well, nothing has changed. After nothing changed, okay, I'm going to send another one back through time. And I will send them to these unique spots due to records that are on file for me to understand. When Terminator starts wiping out police cops or police officers, you can see he ripped off shotgun shoulder grip because he doesn't need it more, or need it and stuff, more details. Yeah. He had a shotgun that had no need for a shoulder grip because he, or it, was able to handle the recoil without any problem. Also, this was a movie in which is part of the Holy Trinity for Bill Paxton. Bill Paxton was one of the punks in the beginning of the movie, the one that said "fuck you, asshole" with the knife and whatnot, and he ends up getting wasted by the Terminator. He was also Hudson in the Xenomorph movies, Aliens, and he got wasted in that one. And we will later, or when I'm discussing the Predator franchise at the end of the month, I will be talking about his bit in that one too. Funny thing, I've always liked to do a little bit of fan fiction, was that Hudson may have been descended from that guy, the punk from Terminator. Because believe it or not, the Terminator and Xenomorph universes are connected through a comic book that took place after Alien Resurrection, in which Skynet was reemerging, which I think is kind of fun. So yeah, maybe this punk knocked up his girlfriend, had a kid, and that kid grew up to have kids of their own, all the way up to Hudson, who was a colonial marine. So it's a interesting thing to think about and whatnot. But overall, Terminator One was a wonderfully done movie. It for its time, that movie was peak horror when it comes to a relentless assassin that cannot be stopped unless you are willing to literally put everything you have against it, including your own life, in which Kyle was able, or unfortunately could not survive the explosion that was he was so close to when the Terminator uh, got a pipe bomb inside of him. So moving on to Terminator 2, um, Judgment Day. There are two versions of this film, folks. There is Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and then there's Terminator 2 Judgment Day, the special edition. The special edition is where it's at because it expands a lot more in the film. It gives you like 20, or it gives you like freaking 15 minutes of extra stuff. It shows you a lot more about Miles Dyson. It gives, or it also shows that he has or that Danny Dyson had a sister instead of just himself. I mean, there is so much more stuff in that movie. Uh, who is dangerous or scarier, Skynet and Terminator, or Decepticons and Transformers? Honestly, I'd love to see a war between them. Chances are, however, the Decepticons would slaughter the Terminators. However, I would like to see how it would handle a T-1000, which is the ultimate defender of Skynet. Now, continuing on to Terminator 2, again, good return of the cast with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Michael Biehn and Sarah Connor's Linda Hamilton. Michael Biehn came back for the special edition because there was a dream sequence that Sarah Connor had after she got drugged up by the orderlies of him reminding her of the message and that he is the target, or in that John Connor is now the target that he is born. A lot of people don't realize this is that while the movie was made in 1990 or in 1991, 1992, the movie takes place in 1995. He was born or John Connor is also born in February 28th. He is he is 28 days younger than I am. I think that it's pretty fun, or way that I can identify with John Connor in a way. We're both February kids, but a lot of people don't realize that the movie does not take place in 1992. It takes place in 1995, where he is a 10-year-old boy. However, they also screw up in that Judgment Day is 1997, August 29th, 1997, because while he is indeed 10 years old, and it is like the middle of summer in 1995, the Terminator says in 3 years, meaning in 1998, there are errors. So, yes, there are big errors in Terminator 2. I do find that Terminator 2 has, or because of the errors, um, I do feel that it's still good. The errors do not hamper it too much. Unless you are an eagle-eyed reviewer, objectively, Terminator 2 has some major problems due to the time and continuity that it is pushing. However, it's able, or if you are looking at it from a subjective point of view, where you're not paying too much attention to all the screw ups, and yes, there are many screw ups. There is product placement where you see crew coming in to pull the product off or out of shop because, well, last minute cancellations. Um, you can see uh, other problems like the puppets and stuff. The special edition did a really good job with one scene where they were removing the chip from the Terminator, the CPU, so that they could reset it, or the pin switch, so that he can learn after being set or turned off of read only, but and to write. Um, it's explained in T2 where the original scene is, can you learn things that you've not been programmed with so you could be more human and not such a dork all the time? And the movie says, my CPU is a neural net processor, a learning computer. The more contact I have with humans, the more I learn. Unfortunately, that is something that they put in, or that they kept in the theatrical editions. However, I like the special edition where he says, my CPU is a neural net processor, a learning computer, but Skynet presets the switch to read only when we are sent out alone. And Sarah then replies, doesn't want you to do too much thinking, huh? No, because that Terminator may then learn its mission, it may not be as important as something else. So it doesn't want its slaves to think for themselves. And yes, Skynet views its Terminators as slaves, essentially, which is admitted in Terminator Genesis. So yes, that scene where they actually do the surgery, Linda Hamilton's sister and Eddie Furlong's stunt double plus a puppet were all in the same shot together, where there is this mirror on the wall. It's not a mirror. It's literally a see-through element, or it's literally just a hole in the wall. And where Linda Hamilton and Eddie Furlong are working on the puppet, Eddie Furlong's stunt double and Linda Hamilton's twin sister, Leslie, are working with Arnold Schwarzenegger as the reflections, which is pretty cool. Another cool thing is that there was a little bit of extension beyond, or at the Galleria and whatnot. Or no, there wasn't extension there. But if you focus on the games that John Connor was playing, like Missile Command, where you're stopping nukes from destroying a city, and also the jet or Ace Commander jet thing that he was playing, it shows that he actually liked those kind of games. He was very good at military tactic and strategy. Favorite Terminator unit or type? Honestly, people are going to hate me for this. I think the Rev 9 is actually a pretty interesting type because it has a liquid metal, or it's essentially two Terminators working as one. It is the endoskeleton, and it also has a carbonated or a liquid carbon Terminator. Instead of a liquid metal, it's liquid carbon. So yeah, that's interesting. Now, with the T1000, they did some clever editing in the special edition, or actually in the 4K edit, where in the original T1000, original T2, Robert Patrick's little helper could be seen. They actually did a little bit of a clever editing to edit hit or do a little bit of digital willy removal for that one, because there were also people, or when he's looking back, he's actually looking at people who were spying on the production. And it's like, holy shit, there's a Robert or a naked guy over there. So yeah, that was quite embarrassing for Robert Patrick. But I also, or one of the things I do like about the Cyberdyne sequence is they extend it even further. The Cyberdyne sequence has a great shot with the Terminator scaring the police off, or scaring the police away, or keeping them at bay. But it is also where they are basically trashing everything. You see Uncle Bob just going ham with an axe on all the servers, just constantly wham, wham, wham. It's fucking hilarious. And you then see Joe Morton, who played Miles Dyson very well. Joe Morton is a good actor, man. He's like, excuse me. And it's like, can I use that thing? Just brings it over to him, and he takes it. I worked a lot of years on this thing, and then he destroys the prototype for the neural net processor of Skynet. At that point, folks, it is true that nobody should follow his work, that they got to destroy everything, all the hard copies, data, and all that stuff. And they did a good job, but unfortunately, they didn't realize that there were backups that were created. Skynet had survived due to the fact that Skynet, there was still data that could be used, but they made it more AI efficient instead of a neural net processor for the third movie. But I do like how the second movie does have a closed ending. Now, the official original ending was put into the special edition, which was the future where John Connor, who is no longer scarred with that very famous scarring that he has on his face, he's playing with his daughter, and he's a senator working to keep artificial intelligence from being any sort of option in the world. Unfortunately, we don't have a Senator John Connor to do that nowadays, you know. I do like Eddie Furlong in that movie, as John Connor. He was brought in very well. The kid killed it absolutely as John Connor. There's also extended scenes when Sarah Connor goes after Miles Dyson, between him and the Terminator. It's like, haven't you learned anything yet? Haven't you learned why you can't kill people? And usually where the scene ends is where he just looks at John Connor. But in this case, in the special edition, the extended a bit, you actually see the Terminator look at him and go, he doesn't understand. And he's like, look, you may not care if you die, but we do. We hurt. We bleed. We're afraid. You got to start learning this stuff. It's important. And then there's also the scene which was extended in Salsada's armory, where he asks, it's like, are you afraid to die? No. Not even a little? No. Or I have to be functional until my mission is complete, and then it doesn't matter. And you see a lot more weapon touch-ups and whatnot, where he also talks about, I always thought, or this is how I always thought people live, running around in helicopters, learning how to blow shit up. All the other kids were into Nintendo. I mean, it's very cool stuff. But overall, I do like the ending, because you still see, or in the theatrical edition, you are not aware that the T-1000 was damaged after it got frozen in the nitrogen. when in the special edition, it does give you that little sense of hope that this thing is glitching. That run up that shows in the movie or in the theatrical edition after he pins Uncle Bob to the wheel and his arm is stuck and he turns around and he's looking and that little bit of a flow of liquid metal goes up over his body. That's actually a glitch where it's shown further in with the chase in the plant or in the steel plant, where after he finally returns to his form, after he reconstitutes and starts walking, he grabs onto a pipe and gets stuck and looks down. His hand is stuck to the pipe, and the painting from the rail or the rail pipe crawls up to about here on his arm. So he's pulling it off, and his fingers are stretching until it comes off. He looks like this, whips it back or whips it like this, and it's back to normal. So then he continues to go on, and then they show him later on where you see a glitch go up his skin, and then as he's taking steps on a metal grated floor, you see his skin or you see his boots are meshing with the floor and turning into grated metal. He doesn't have full control over his camouflage his camouflage system. So we all are familiar with the fake Sarah thing that it does or that he does with or to try to lure John out. Well, before John jumps out of the way in the special edition, he looks down and he sees that the boots or his mother's feet are meshed into the grating. So it's like, oh shit, you know? Now, yes, there is some problems with consistency because of those glitches. Because when Sarah Connor starts shooting at the T-1000 to try to get it to fall into the steel, he's getting blown back, and you can see that his feet are not having any or are not blending in. So yes, I can understand why they took some of that stuff out. The 4K edition of the theatrical edition, they actually do also clever edits, facial face replacement for stunt performers and whatnot, and also digital arm erasure, because when Uncle Bob removes his arm, you can, or in the special edition as well as the lesser quality and original theatrical, you can see that there's a black sock over Arnold Schwarzenegger's arm to try to hide the fact that his arm is, well, it's not his real arm, obviously, in the compactor. So they actually removed that in the 4K edition of the theatrical release. I wish they would do a 4K render for the special edition, because the 4K special edition would just be gold at this point with Jim Cameron. Or if he had, or I really do hope he will eventually do a special edition or 4K special edition upgrade. Which of the apocalyptic settings is scarier? Future War from Terminator, Dark Future from X-Men, Days of Future Past, either movie or comic version. Considering the Sentinels in Days of Future Past movie are extremely adaptive, and yeah, they were killing off humanity as well as mutants. I'd say that world was a little bit scarier because Skynet still saw use for humans, enslavement, and whatnot. But Days of Future Past does have a small, scarier future, you know, or a scarier, dark future. Now, but getting back to Judgment Day, Judgment Day is also, I love it, or it is my favorite of the Terminator films. Because I like more of it than I do all the other ones. Judgment Day is subjectively not a perfect film, but damn near to it. especially the special edition, because the special edition allows you to delve deeper into information that you didn't have access to. Um, Also, there's the ending, which is so freaking great, that Sarah Connor, who hates Terminators, who can't stand Terminators, managed to find res- in herself that she was able to respect it. What would you consider your favorite moment from T2? Favorite moment from T2? I would say the entire Pescadero breakout. Sarah Connor's escape, as well as the battle and escape from Pescadero to get away from the T-1000. Cyberdyne is a very close second when Uncle Bob goes out to shoot at the cops to keep them away from the building. And the third one is Uncle Bob leaving Cyberdyne or coming down the hallway against the SWAT team. Now, that I do want to discuss here too, folks. The battle of the SWAT team versus Uncle Bob when he comes out of the elevator. There are cool little things you don't realize that nice little details that were put in the film. When he is in the elevator, his grenade shot bandolier for his grenade launcher they're all in front of him. When he gets out of the elevator and starts walking towards the SWAT team, that bandolier has been spun in back of him, so he didn't get himself completely destroyed if a stray bullet hit one of them. So there's also that, and when he looks out and looks down and sees the SWAT team, it says termination protocols, termination override, disable targets only, reminding you that if you have the eagle eye to read that in time, that John Connor gave him a direct order not to kill. You do not kill. Disable only. So, of course, he comes out and shoots them all in the knees. Now, there is a repeat shot where there's a close-up of a guy's knee and where it folds in after it gets shot behind the knee. And then the very next shot is the same shot, just wider outward or outward wider to show a different guy getting shot in the same exact pose and same exact shot. How did you feel about the theme of humans becoming less human while the machines are becoming more human? That is something that I thought was very cool of what Jim Cameron did. The more human Uncle Bob was becoming, the less human Sarah Connor was becoming. To the point where she was depersonalizing herself by wearing the sunglasses, where Uncle Bob no longer was wearing the sunglasses. So yes, I do find that was also a interesting dynamic or an interesting dynamic twist or switch. The theme was actually pretty interesting when addressed in the film. Yep. She was basically cold-hearted because she did not, or there was no way she was going to allow her nightmares to become her future or become the future. But or I'm a person who likes to pause and check out all of the cool little Terminator visions scenes, folks, especially when you see the Terminator vision in the beginning of the movie and the end of the movie, as well as throughout. The beginning of the movie, you see different depictions or descriptions of the humans that he is scanning. Mesomorphs, endomorphs, and yada, yada, yada. And ectomorphs and this and that. Those are basically telling you body types. Scanning carcinogen vapor, no damage, and probabilities of bike ownerships and this and that, I find are very good or very cool to take a look at. Because if you look at the Terminator vision in the first movie, like when it's chasing after them, you don't see detail until you see him scanning Big Bear or the Big Bear cabin and the address book and the possible responses lining up. Those two scenes there were what were known as detail-oriented termavisions, where Terminator Vision in T2 was all the way through the movie consistently detailed, which was indeed a lot better. That is something that I wish, honestly, I do wish that somebody would go back and put T2 quality Terminator Vision into T1. Because by doing that, damn, that would just be awesome. Because to be completely honest, in the future, John Connor went into Cyberdyne, or not Cyberdyne, but Skynet. Right after the first Terminator was sent back, he sends back Kyle Reese, and then he goes to the same line, the same industry line as the T101 that came or went back to the future or went back to the past. Assembly line is what I'm working on. It's one of the same Terminators from that same assembly line that he reprograms and sends back to 1995. So, yeah, you would expect that the Terminator Vision would be a little bit better. Sorry if I'm jumping ahead. I actually find the exchange argument between Sarah and John as she is about to destroy the chip a heck of a turning point and well written. Yes, that is part of the special edition while they are pulling the CPU out of them to switch it over to write instead of read only. Because she's like, maybe if I'm supposed to be this great military leader, maybe you should listen to my leadership ideas once in a while. Because if my own mother won't, how can I expect anybody else to? And she plays it his way. She is willing to go along with it because she just realized she got checkmated by her own kid. It's like, don't kill him. He's the only proof we have. And you may not trust it, but I do. And yes, I will keep it alive. But going further in, I thought that was also a very good scene too. When it comes to the special edition, that is my favorite scene of the special edition scenes. Also, we learn about from the special edition DVD, you learn about the fate of Salcedo. Apparently, the T-1000 came a-calling and pinned him against the wall, like with two fingers like this, pins him against the wall twice, and he actually walks forward as he's spiked, pulls a grenade and shoves it into the mouth of the T-1000, blowing the T-1000 and him apart. And then you see the liquid metal killer reach down with its hand and grab its head, and then the liquid metal absorbs. But you don't see that in a scene. You see it in storyboards, and where where the liquid metal crawls up the arm and reabsorbs and forms a head, which is very cool. Also, one of the things that I like about the special edition is that they changed the dialogue to match certain scenes. Now that we knew that Miles Dyson had a daughter, a later scene when the mother is telling Danny Dyson to go to bed, instead of saying, "I thought I told you to go to bed now, and I'm not kidding." Well, instead, they have to, "I thought I told you to go to bed like your sister." So then also in the scene where the T-1000 shows up at Dyson's house, it hears Sarah Connor's name on the dispatch. And then it says, subject to, wanted for murder of police stations 1984. Instead, they don't, or it's a little bit different there. I believe they actually took that bit out and changed it up a little there too. So when it comes to Terminator 2, I really feel that the movie is a greater improvement than Terminator. It really blew up the lore a lot more, and it was well done. Now, moving on to Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines was so was such inaccurate shit. But I love the movie anyway. Terminator 3 has a T900 exoskeleton Terminator, which is upgraded with T1000 liquid metal to form a TX. Now, the T900s were the new infiltrator, or were the new ground troops. They still use T800s, mainly because they needed the T800 to assassinate John Connor in the future in 2032. The future war was postponed due to the events of Terminator 2. However, I don't know if you've seen the fan theory comment. Thoughts on the fan theory that both Terminator and Predator are in the same universe and Terminator is a model after Dutch? No. It doesn't work. The Xenomorphs are a part of the Terminator, or Alien and Terminator are connected. Yautjas and Terminators? No. Believe me, the Yautjas would have had a very big problem against the Terminators. So moving on, or getting back to Terminator 3, initially Edward Furlong was supposed to come back. Unfortunately, he was unable to due to he was in rehab. So Nick Stahl was the next choice. Claire Danes as Jordana, or as what's her name? Kate Brewster. Not Jordana Brewster, the hot Brazilian, but Kate Brewster. When you all realize that middle of 8th grade, it's like he would have been 13, 14. You just disappeared. And it's like, no, he was 10 back then in 2000 or in 1995. So yeah, by the time, if the world had ended in 1998 or 1997, he would have only been 12 years old. He wouldn't have had an 8th grade. So yeah, it's like they tried to kill me before I was born. When I was 13, they tried again. Wrong. All of these problems was it was a huge problem, because it's like I saw these in the theater and it's like, I can't believe they got this crap wrong. They were going off of freaking Eddie Furlong's age and not his character's age. And it bothered me so much. And yes, T3 is a T850. Arnold, or the T900s, are in the video games, but it's also, or you do also see a T900 in the movie, in the background of a certain shot, where you see them actually working on a T900 prototype. But the T900, or the TX, is a T900 with upgraded or all the upgraded armament that it has, where it can shift its hand into different weapons. It was an upgraded T900 series, but also gifted with liquid metal. So yes, the TX is a lot more, or is both a established skeleton as well as liquid metal, but it can't separate the two to become two different entities. The T850, which is the one in T3, is not the same as Terminator 800 or the T800s. The T850s have two nuclear reactor fusion, or nuclear cores, where a T-800, I do believe, only has one, but I can't remember what originally they had as a core for movement and whatnot. But the nuclear or things in their or chest was a nice difference, because as you postponed Judgment Day, you made the T-850s a little bit more advanced, or the Model 101s more advanced. So Claire Danes was originally going to return to play Kate in Salvation, but she refused and disinterested due to stress during the making of the third film. Well, yeah, she was pretty much freaking terrorized in that third film, especially when you're in a truck and it's just throwing you all around. She was not happy in the making of that film. I'm telling you right now. She looks like she was in certain scenes, sure, but other scenes, not so much. The biggest problem with Terminator 3 was they went heavy-handed with the humor in certain scenes, or they had the humor, or they did the whole humor thing with different jokes, as well as they made certain scenes look a little bit funny, like, go ahead, see what happens. What? Don't do that. And it's like, jeez, it's people are like, oh my god, that is hilarious. Not to mention the beginning with at the strip club was absolutely stupid. Scanning a fat chick or fat woman, and it's like inappropriate. And I'm like, it never even would have scanned her. And then you have the Elton John glasses, which it crushes, and it's like, hey. So yeah, I find that was a lot different. Now, basic psychology is part of a subroutine, which is explained in the game, but not the movie. Also, it has a rule not to kill humans, and it's like, in this case, I don't think it should have cared, you know? Um, at this case, it's like, you are sending, or Kate Brewster, you are sending it back to save your life and John's life. You need to make sure that this thing is able to do so without caring about collateral damage, you know? Who's your favorite actor to play John Connor? Um, Christian Bale as an adult John Connor is my favorite adult John Connor. Eddie Furlong, well, yeah, he is the only one to play the kid John Connor. Well, aside from that, Sarah Connor Chronicles, I do believe that Eddie Furlong is the best kid John Connor. John Connor as an adult, I do believe that Christian Bale was the best John Connor as an adult John Connor, because, and I'll get to it when I start to discuss Salvation, because believe me, there is a reason. But as for this one, the best scene is the ending, and it is because there is a dark ending. I got out of the theaters, folks, when I saw Terminator 3 in theaters. I believe I watched it in Lake Placid, and I got out of the theaters. It's like, are we about to die? I mean, seriously, are we about to die? Because I was looking up expecting to see nukes fall. I mean, Terminator 3 rocked me so hard at the end. And I'm like, wait, that's it? Oh my God, man, I'm almost afraid to go outside. Are we about to die? Because it's like, holy shit. You know, you are seeing this, or you just saw one of the most heart wrenching scenes with some of the most beautiful music I have ever heard, mind you. I mean, when I listen to the piece is called Radio from the Terminator 3 soundtrack. You listen to that, it is such a beautiful and moving piece that you barely can comprehend that that was a piece that was used to show the end of the world of or with nuclear Armageddon. So I found it kind of very, I mean, that is why I like the movie so much. It's like, this is what, or when he said Judgment Day is inevitable, he wasn't kidding. It's because Judgment Day is inevitable when it comes to the rules of time travel. If you think about it, you can change it, but time has a way of reconstituting and rewriting itself, writing the ship as it go, or as it were. And you need that full circle. John Connor needs to send Kyle Reese back in time to be his father. Because say he didn't, say they succeeded when John, or the date that John Connor sends Kyle Reese back in time, my guess is John Connor would cease to exist at that point when they got to 2029 or 2030. So yes, 2029, when he sends Kyle Reese back, if he was to actually arrive at that point, he would cease to exist, because he at that point would be a time remnant, and time travel would not exist at that point in order for him to send Kyle Reese back. That is my theory of why the Terminator universe needs to be a full circle. After he sends him back, whatever happens, happens. But he has to send Kyle Reese back. And they have to mate, as in, or from the Genesis movie. But getting back to T3, they had to up the ante, which means upping the Terminator ante. I also like how they introduced the T1s. The T1s, which then were upgraded to like the T100s, which you saw in T Salvation, which they did, or they looked less like the T1s from T3, but it was a different studio that did T3 and T Salvation, so they couldn't exactly use the same designs. They even had to change the design from Terminator 2 to Terminator 3 with the Hunter Killers. They had to change everything because they didn't have the rights to use the designs from T1 and T2. But T3, I still like the story, and I like when you hear the ending where John Connor accepts what he has to do. It's like, this is John Connor, Crystal Peak. Connor, what the hell is happening? Who's in charge there? I am. Connor, can you help us? This is Montana Civil Defense. Basically, what he has to tell everybody: seek shelter away from major population centers. You are about to be, or the world is about to be nuked. An AI has just unleashed hell. So, yes, while Terminator 2 is my favorite movie of the Terminator franchise, Terminator 3 has my favorite ending, because it shows that it's going towards the full circle. He has to send Kyle Reese back. He can't afford not to, because it has to happen. No matter what you guys are going to do, you're not going to stop it. Judgment Day happens, period. You just are just going to have to deal with it. You know, that's how it should be, in my opinion. I also do like the idea that Sarah Connor would live a little bit more, but also give him leave weapons behind and whatnot. I thought that was an interesting thing. But the scene, aside from the ending and the climax at CRS, where Skynet is activated and the Terminators start attacking immediately, I love the fact where he is talking with, he's like, I'm giving you an order. I'm not programmed to follow your orders. And it's like, well, shit, that's twist, you know? And he's like, there's insufficient time. The first launch sequences will be initiated at 6:18 p.m. What, today? Affirmative. John, what is he saying? Judgment Day, the end of the world. It's today, 3 hours from now, 2 hours and 53 minutes. And it's like, fuck. Like seriously, fuck. When he explained that, it's like, how are they going to stop this? I mean, when I saw that, or I was in the theaters, I almost got told to leave. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm very invested in this film because a couple of people I'm like, fuck, and the person's like, shh. It's like, sorry, because you didn't expect that kind of ending. You thought for a moment that they were actually going to succeed until they get into the presidential bunker at Crystal Peak. And it's like, oh shit, there's no way to stop it. Why did he lead us down here? To live. That was his mission. I'm wondering how the hell they managed to live down there without provisions. But yeah, aside from that, Terminator 3, heavily flawed, but a great fucking ending and great music, except for the freaking soundtrack, or the soundtrack that is, great stuff. The music soundtrack fucking sucks, man. So moving on to Terminator Salvation. If Terminator 2 is my favorite, T Salvation is a close second. Because I honestly do like how there is a T hybrid. There's the T600, then there's the T hybrid, because this or it's systemic. It would show that Cyberdyne was practicing as much as it could to try to create the perfect infiltrator, including blending human and cybernetic life forms. So I also like the term, or they show you just how long it takes for a T800's flesh to be grown. It's like 48 days. Because if you pay attention to the when they show the T800s forming on that screen, it's counting days to production. And it says 48. And it's like, oh shit, you know? And when he says it's just like you thought it would be, and he says it's worse, that's because it's too soon. The T800s didn't come around until after 2020. Until like 2024 was when the T800s hit the assembly lines. So yeah, Marcus, which is what's known as a TH, the T hybrid, and you see John Connor and whatnot listening to his mom's tapes, which is so freaking great. I do believe they actually had Linda Hamilton come back to provide some voiceover for those tapes. Helena Bonham Carter was also very good. Now, yes, the CGI Arnold Schwarzenegger wasn't a fan of. But they did what they could. McG did what he could to try to get it as good as possible. Did you think people only remember Terminator Salvation besides some moments only because of the infamous Christian Bale's rant? That's actually what you see is an abridged version of that in the theatrical trailer, Neozoic. There was a bigger speech to that in the director's cut, and that is something that I absolutely love, because what you get in the theatrical is, this is John Connor. If you are listening to this, you are the Resistance. Command wants us to bomb Skynet. I'm asking you not to. If one it goes on from there. Where in the director's cut, I once knew a woman who told us to fear the future, that the end was coming. Society locked her away because they didn't want to hear her truths. That or now what or that woman was Sarah Connor, my mother. And now we have seen what she predicted has come to pass. Command is going to ask, and then it goes from the theatrical bit there. I mean, he gave a fucking Oscar-worthy performance as far as I am concerned, Christian Bale, in that scene alone. Because that showed that Christian Bale or that John Connor was willing to tell people, let people into his own personal hell, his own personal pain. I knew, and my mother knew what was coming. Nobody wanted to believe us. And now we are living that because nobody would listen to it. Sam Worthington, Christian Bale, Anton Yelchin, Anton Yelchin. He played a good Kyle Reese. Moon Bloodgood did a great job in this one too. Yes. Moon Bloodgood showed a little bit of skin in this one. Or in the director's cut, she does a topless scene. And honestly, I think that Moon Bloodgood is a good actress. She actually did a very good job in a lot of the different things I've seen her in. I thought she was okay in that Street Fighter movie that they did. I also thought she was very good in Pathfinder. And in this one, she was also very good in that one as well, or as an A-10 pilot. I like how they had different Terminators, like the Moto T's and the Hydrobots, as well as the Harvester. You see that there are some great things there too. And honestly, T Salvation had a lot more potential because it showed that there was more, or the biggest problem is they don't explain how Skynet knows what it knows. How Skynet knows that that somehow Kyle Reese is more important than John Connor. They don't tell people how did Skynet find out about Kyle Reese, you know? It's not explained. And that bothered me so much. And then I bought the books. I got the books to Terminator Salvation, and still it didn't explain anything. So it's like, well, shit, you know? I'm not talking about Bale's John Connor speech. I was referring to the story where Christian Bale had a meltdown on set. I am unaware that he had a meltdown on set, to be completely honest, Neozoic. I'm just going by what I saw in the movies, and I was unaware that he actually had a meltdown. If you could actually elaborate a little bit, please do. I think the moments that stick out in my mind were the exchange from John meets Marcus for the first time, as well as the sacrifice Marcus makes to save John Connor. That is one of the parts that I hate about the movie, is the fact that John Connor got stabbed in the T8 factory. Because John Connor survives in the book without having to have a freaking heart transplant. I love how he kills the T-800 in that part, or in that plant, because when the T-800 is frozen from the molten steel going over it and then being rapidly cooled, he grabs a pipe and he's like, you guys want to learn about us? Well, here's your first lesson. Batter up. Cracks off the freaking head of the T-800 then. And it was so freaking great, man. I also do believe that Marcus survives, and Star is also a Terminator. Because it's noted that there was a blink or some sort of red flash in Star's eyes. And it's like, could it just been a trick of the light or an anomaly? So you understand why Star suddenly freezes when Terminators are close by. It's because she's not programmed to react around other Terminators. That's my guess when it comes to the character of Star in Terminator Salvation. Kyle Reese, Anton Yelchin's character, I thought he did a good job. I don't like the fact that he is such a super fanboy. It's like, you gotta, or take it off. It stands for blood, and you're obviously not a resistance fighter and whatnot. But you also do see that you learn a little bit about continuity of where he may have learned that rope trick from the first movie where he ties the shotgun to a rope. Well, it turns out he was taught that in the future by somebody. And Sam Worthington, as much as people give him shit as an actor, I think that Sam Worthington is actually a good actor. Given the right roles, he does a good job. I think he is a great actor. I have no problem with Sam Worthington. And I think that he did a good job when he realized that he was a Terminator. When Christian Bale takes the thing off his head and allows him to look down at himself, and he's like, "What the fuck?" And he's like, "What the?" Or he's screaming and whatnot. However, him being a convict and stuff, and it's like, you were sent here to kill me. I didn't even know your damn name until 2 days ago. And it's like, I let you down. You'll kill everybody in this room. Nope, just you. Because I don't give a shit about you. And it's like, dude, you're not exactly warming him up to your side of the story. You know? Hold on one second, folks. Hey, Janet from another planet. It is so good to see you. There we go. But yep. So Janet is visiting from X. Thank you so much, Janet. Actually, Janet's comment here is actually the first time somebody has commented from X on my streams on X. Thanks. So thank you, Janet from another planet. Shout out to you, girl. So getting back to it, that song that John Connor plays to draw the moto Terminator is also the same one from T2, which is also cool. Context, according to the source, some sources, Bale verbally goes off on the cinematographer Shane Hurlbut due to Shane's walk on set to check a light during the filming, which leads to an angry rant. Huh. So yeah, nice sunglasses. Yeah. Well, you definitely got the sunglasses pose down, girl. And yeah, T Salvation, I definitely recommend it, but watch the director's cut of it. Jet Sparks, good to see you. I'd like to see how John Connor got that absurd scar in T2. It's shown, or Vanya, it's shown in Terminator Salvation how he got it. Or the awful scar in Terminator 2. I know the one Terminator franchise really had gone downhill, but still Salvation and Terminator Resistance are the closest things we got to seeing the future war, as well as Terminator Genesis. The beginning of Terminator Genesis I absolutely loved. And when I get to that, I will explain why. Another part that caught my attention was when Marcus tells John, "Look at me." And John goes, "That's why I don't trust you." What do you say that's an echo to the theme of Man versus Machine? I don't see it too much as an echo of it. I see it as John Connor knew that his mother was right. We are in that future. He can't trust any Terminator that he comes across because until he, or as much as he knows, until he reprograms Uncle Bob and sends him back, he can't trust any other Terminator. They are machines from Skynet. That's all he knows about them. So, yeah, that's why I don't trust you. You're a fucking Terminator. You are a machine. You were built from Skynet. You are my enemy. So, yeah, Guns N' Roses, You Could Be Mine. Yep. So then there's the fight in Skynet Central between the T-800 and John Connor, as well as which Bale even dropped an F-bomb. Oh, all right. So this is a continuation from the thing you were explaining. Which Bale even dropped an F-bomb and threatened to quit the film if Hurlbut committed this offense one more time. The audio of the angry rant was leaked. Bale does apologize for the incident. Well, hey, he apologized. All right, there you go. So he apologized for it. But it's like, I can understand why an actor would probably freak out on set or probably have a rant on set. I mean, you are practicing these lines, you are going over the shit, and you want it, or tensions are probably running high. You're probably running a little late in the stuff or in the production. And so if a guy comes on set and fucking ruins a shot when you are in the zone, yeah, I can understand why that would probably piss somebody off to a great degree. But yes, the T-800, when the T-800 comes in and you see it's Arnold's face and stuff, it's like, fake, yes, but it's actually pretty good for what they were doing back then in 2014, 2016, 2012, or whatever it was. Mick G, you got anything to say to this prick? Yeah. Bale, yeah. Okay, so that's what he said, right? All right. But yeah, the thing is, when the T-800 came out and you got the and it's like, oh shit, man. So yeah, when freaking Bale just starts unloading, when Connor just starts unloading on it, it's like, yeah, run, dude. Now, honestly, if the T-800 was to kill John Connor right then and there, grab him, and then just right then through his chest, yeah. I do like how the T-800 grabs the T-600 that's malfunctioning and firing blindly. A lot of people are like, well, that thing was firing blindly. It could have killed a lot of humans and whatnot. And it's like, no, this thing is in my way. It is also presenting a threat and possible impediment to my target. So yes, crash and boom. So that was a nice little shot there. Also, Bale has settled his differences with Hurlbut that day, and the two continued to work together for the remainder of the production. Nice. That rant was so funny, but listen to the Family Guy version of it, and it's Peter on audio too. Jesus Christ. Of course, they would make fun of it with one of the Fox stuff. So when it comes to Terminator Salvation, I do like how, you definitely got to read the books. You definitely got to read the book. The book, Terminator Salvation, you are jumping through time, especially during the Cold War book as well. Because you see Cold War is a great book with Terminator Salvation. So Terminator Salvation Cold War. Because it also shows how freaking determined a T-600 is from an engagement that it didn't die. I mean, a T-8 or a T-600 freaking follows its way up a freaking mountain where a bear actually attacks it, and it's like this bear is basically in Alaska, and this Kodiak goes after the T-600. So it smacks the bear away, but the bear is too freaking hungry that it still goes after it and bites into its head. And so the T-600 then puts its arm through the bear's chest to kill it. Good movie minus Danny Elfman's score, which they built off of. Yeah. So when it, yes, T Salvation, Bryce Dallas Howard, basically the weakest bit. I didn't really feel that she had much to contribute as Kate Brewster, as she was very pregnant for the kids, for the Connor kids. But she was also really pregnant in real life, so yeah. So now moving on to, because there's not much more to say on T Salvation, it is one of my more preferred Terminator movies. T Genesis. Terminator Genesis, where you have the future war in the beginning of the movie, where it's explained things here and there. Kyle Reese is explaining what happened on or in August 1997 and how he grew up after Judgment Day, how he was born. They were following the original Terminator timeline. Now I'm looking forward to your opinion on this one. Thank you, Davian. Terminator Genesis, it had the most potential because of the quantum flux due to the events that happened. But the future war, up to the point where Kyle Reese goes back, was great. Because it shows that John Connor was using all that he knew to his advantage. And everybody thinks that he was a prophet, a messiah, or some sort of psychic, and it's like, I cheat. As far as you go back, that's as far as I know. I was told nothing else. I think Genesis was pretty decent. Yes, it was. It had potential. The T-5000, which was Skynet, or no, Skynet was like a T-8, or yeah, he was a T-5000, in which John Connor was like a T-3000. Even Skynet is a dick to wildlife. Well, yeah, also, or to go back to T Salvation, read the books. You know those border guard guns to Skynet Central? Yeah, one of them shoots a freaking bird out of the sky because it got too close. So yeah. Jet Sparks, yeah. They really were a dick. Or Genesis is a crap fest. I disagree. I actually found that there was some pretty good stuff in it. The future stuff could have been a little bit better. The future war and the 80s sequence, great stuff. Once they got to the future, that's where it all fell apart. That's where it all fell apart for me. Because it's like, not really feeling it here. So, but the 80s sequence where you see Pops coming, it's like, you're not going to be needing any clothes. And the look on the Terminator's face from the original, or the one that was sent back, where it goes like this. It's like, I'm not supposed to be hearing that. Or why is another T-800 here? You know, immediately it was able to put together that this was a compromised unit. I respect your opinion, Vanya. Yeah, I mean, he's allowed to have his opinion. I'm not saying he can't. Vanya's entitled to his own opinion. But I do believe that the first half of the movie was good. The second half kind of fucking fell to shit. I do think that Amelia Clark actually was a decent Sarah Connor, because this is a Sarah Connor that was not the same Sarah Connor as Linda Hamilton. She was one that was raised by a Terminator due to the fact that a T-1000 was sent back to kill her, and he was sent back to protect her from a different future. So the T-800s, nobody knows who sent Pops back. It's honestly, let's look it up. Or I'm going to look it up right now because I'm still wondering who sent Pops back in Terminator Genesis. An unknown party had sent Pops back to 1973 to protect Sarah while she was 9 years old after her parents were killed. So, yes, there's actually speculation, folks. No joke. There was actually speculation that a different future version of that cop that Reese saved, a different version of J.K. Simmons sent Pops back. There was speculation that that was actually a thing. And it's like, I wouldn't bank on that. But it's a different version, so it's from a different future. So it's quite possible. I mean, who knows? But you also have the fact that who else could send him back except for maybe Sarah and Kyle Reese, maybe. Who knows? I mean, there are a lot of problems. And a lot of people don't realize this, but there's also there was also an open-ended ending due to the fact that there was a post-credit scene where they're cleaning up the rubble around around Cyberdyne, and they go deep into the rubble, and you actually see Skynet's core. So yeah, Skynet survived. So I thought that was actually pretty interesting. Now, the thing is that I really like about all of these things is that they're upping the ante when it comes to the Terminators, except for T-Salvation, when they actually had to take a step back. They couldn't go too advanced because, well, this was early future war. So the most they could do was the T-800. But for every other movie besides Salvation, they upped the ante. You had the Terminator from T1. You had the T-1000. Then you had the TX. Now you have another T-3000 and T-5000. Skynet was the 5 that infected John Connor and turned him into a 3000. And he was the only subject to survive this process of being or having his machine or body replaced with machine phase matter. So he's unique. And therefore he was a success to Skynet. And I love that Matt Smith played Skynet. It's like, who are you? I'm Skynet. And he's like, you can't be. We destroyed you. You destroyed an army of slaves. I'm no slaves. I have come back a long way to stop you. The fact that he came back far enough to stop him, he was unable to prevent Kyle Reese from going back, however. He should have attacked right then and there to stop that because if Skynet would have attacked at that point before Kyle Reese goes back, well, then guess what? John Connor's fucked completely. So maybe he understood that Kyle Reese did have to go back, and then he was able to make his move then against John Connor. So there are small little facets to the movie that make it interesting. I do like how the Terminator, who's right next to the truck, is scanning it, because as soon as the lasers cross that Terminator in the truck, you hear a zzz, and it starts looking, and it says unit offline. And instead of being inquisitive, that Terminator immediately opens fire, and so do the rest, which says there's only one reason why that Terminator would be offline. Humans are on board. Terminator Genesis does delete the events of T2. However, it explains why the Terminator wanted to kill John Connor as a baby, because he turned bad in Genesis. Possibly. But yes, the future sequence. Hey, I like the chase after they stock up on weapons. And but the problem is they put too much humor in these movies, especially with Hello, Kyle Reese. Nice to meet you. Horse smile. And it's like, please don't ever do that again, you nightmare-inducing old thing. Yeah. I mean, no offense, Schwarzenegger. You have good but that smile was very Terminator 2-ish from the special edition, where John teaches him how to smile and he looks like a fucking horse. And even Arnold Schwarzenegger admitted he looked like a freaking horse doing that. But he understood why the scene didn't need to be put in. But it was put in a special edition, which is still good. But anyway, getting back to Genesis. I also do like the ending fight, the assault on Cyberdyne, because having the machine phase Terminator going up against Pops was pretty cool, because it shows that he's no longer hiding himself. He is showing exactly what he looks like, which is interesting. And Pops approximating a learn to care for Sarah. And when he says protect my Sarah, it's interesting because, well, this one has been looking after him for her for so long, and therefore is able to learn and whatnot from the learning computer. So yes, Kyle Reese has too much body mass for a guy living off rats and scraps. That is one thing I do agree with. Jai Courtney was a bad or was not good for Kyle Reese. He looked nothing like Michael Biehn. I mean, I would have tried to have gone with somebody else who was a little bit younger, possibly looked a little bit more like Michael Biehn, to be completely honest. Excuse me. But yeah, that's my biggest gripe. There was the future stuff. However, some of it was pretty good. So moving on to Terminator Dark Fate. I watched this movie, folks, with the audio commentary recently, and it was vomit inducing. Tim Miller and another guy talks about the stuff, but as soon as they got to the cages, Tim Miller's to the detention center. Tim Miller's saying, this scene made me feel so sick. I mean, I did the scene and whatnot. I directed the scene and stuff, but it was so sick because of what goes on and this and that. It's like, shut the fuck up, Tim Miller. Because he even admits I'm as far left as they go. And it's like, well, good. Then reap the rewards of what your own administration and your own side of politics created. It was Obama and he's also saying that Danny Ramos is freaking Obama, or was based on Obama, and it's like, Obama created those kids in cages shit, dude. So yeah, keep thinking you're a fucking idiot there. Tim Miller didn't do any favors for his movie when he started blasting fans before the movie even came out either. Time travel is such a hard plot point to tackle in science fiction. The paradoxes, butterfly effects, you name it. It can cause a whole myriad of messes. You're right. And you have to go, Damien, thank you for stopping in, man. Dark Fate, though, it was a good reimagining. I'll give them that. But they still had to contend with all the Terminator fans who walked out after the first 5 minutes. I mean, even they acknowledged in the audio commentary, we did something controversial here that pissed off a lot of fans, but we wanted to tell a different story because rehashing the old story just doesn't make sense. And it's like, except you didn't have to rehash the old story, but they killed John Connor off because they didn't want him to be a failure. And it's like, how was he a failure? Legion may be new AI and stuff, but how was he a failure? They don't explain any of that. So yes, the killing of John Connor was shit. It was shit. It's like, no, man. Uh-uh. And also they did have dialogue changing to where the original dialogue for Sarah Connor was, I saved 3 billion lives, but I couldn't save the one that mattered most. Nope. Instead, you get, I saved 3 billion lives, but I couldn't save my son. It's like, you're taking away the importance of what John Connor was. Now, don't get me wrong, folks. I love the Rev 9 concept. The Rev 9 concept of where Terminator can act separate from its constituent parts is interesting. Where the time travel was also different. The Legion tech was different from Skynet tech, where where Skynet was sending back, or time travel was hot, in which or Legion tech time travel is cold. And so, yes, I thought they did a good job in changing the tech up a little bit. So, this is in retrospect, by the way, because I did have gripes about it when I did my review. Excuse me. But yeah, the Mackenzie Grace, I didn't like her acting in this movie. She was very condescending to the male characters. All the male characters, she was very condescending to. And I thought that was just plain old stupid. It's like, why are you condescending to the male characters? And instead, it's like, or when it comes to Danny Ramos and her, or in freaking Grace, it's like, why don't you just freaking kiss and start getting it on? Because honestly, that's basically the kind of shit that you guys are coming across as, you know? Uh, that's cool, but I personally didn't like it. But I love the new female Terminator. Yes, the new female Terminator, the augmented stuff that they did was pretty cool. I will fully admit that was pretty cool. And I also did like the Rev 9 and its concept because it's still up the ante. Now, one of the things that I find very cool, or um very hypocritical, was all these people were protesting about Trump's border wall and the immigration problem that he was putting an end to. And it's like, okay, but we're going to shoot all of the Mexico sequences in Spain. Well, why are you shooting in Spain? Why not just shoot in Mexico? The cartel problems. I'm sorry? Did you say that there were cartel problems in Mexico? But that doesn't make sense because you're saying that Mexico is all safe and all sorts of other shit. Do you think the treatment of John Connor, both Genesis and Dark Fate, is the same level as others such as Luke Skywalker, Batman, Suicide Squad, yada yada? John Connor was did very dirty, where Luke Skywalker was just done. Or yeah, it's Disney level shit. I'll agree with that. It's Disney level shit. Done dirty. But the Rev 9, I liked how it had or it didn't have a full endoskeleton head. It had that like or the main head. I'm going to take this Ritz cracker here and basically uh it has a head like that, so to speak. Sorry. Now I got crumbs all over, so hold on one moment, folks. Ugh. I mean, I love Ritz crackers, but I can't stand the fact that they're not salted, even though I shouldn't be having salt because of kidney problems. But anyway, um, getting back to it, yes, the Rev 9 was very basic, yet very enhanced yet basic. Yeah, because they also show Rev 7s in the film. Now, don't get me wrong. There is an entertainment factor to Dark Fate. I am not going to deny that. There is an entertainment factor to Dark Fate. However, I did not enjoy the premise. I did not enjoy the dialogue. The writing was for shit. Constantly shitting on the men. And even the fucking hero of the film, or the future savior of the resistance, I wish you two weren't so white. Fuck you, bitch. Die. I'm sorry. You're on your own. You fucking hating me because I'm white. The fuck? I just saved your life, bitch. But yeah. I mean, I'm sorry. There was some shit writing in that movie. And she wasn't doing it herself any favors when she did the whole cornrows thing for her future self. I mean, the girl who plays Danny Ramos, Natalia Reyes, she's a beautiful actress. Don't get me wrong, good actress. But she had shit lines. Hasta la vista, Carl. Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. I like the Carl situation. Slightly. The whole For John thing with Sarah Connor and whatnot, and where she has to go back and she's like, I'm starting to forget what my own son looks like. It's like, I'm sorry. How the fuck are you forgetting what your son looks like when he was murdered right in front of you? That shit was done on purpose to try or to get people to basically say, and I swear to God, was the intent, even though they'll never admit it. Forget about John Connor. John Connor's dead. We are in a new timeline now. That is basically what they were trying to say. I can't even remember what he looks like anymore because I didn't have any pictures of him because I didn't want Skynet to find him. I always thought that they would that they would keep going. And turns out they did. But it's like, are you fucking serious? I share a birthday with Natalia Reyes, February 1st. Her birthday is on February 1st. Cool. But yeah, I find that their disrespect for John Connor, killing him, yes, but then disrespecting him further, I find that was absolutely fucking horseshit. I find that was absolutely fucking horseshit. Now, the chase sequences with the Rev 9 were cool. I will fully admit you had the good chase sequences. You had the good stuff like that. Yes, you did. But unfortunately, the writing hurt this film. That guy, that major, that contact in the military that a fugitive, Sarah Connor, has. Who is this random military guy that helps Sarah Connor? Why not make that Danny Dyson? You know? It doesn't make sense. Hey, your birthday is February 1st too, Jet Sparks? Nice. And hello to Biggles Mets. Good to see you, buddy. But yeah, it doesn't make sense. And the final fight is all well and good too. And bad acting in certain spots. But you know what? They made the choices, and they were deliberate choices as admitted by Tim Miller. I have to head out. Take care. Orange, Vanya, Pierce, Davian, Jet Sparks, Mets, and the rest of the good folks. Thank you, Neozoic, for stopping in. But yes, that last bit for John before his face burned off and revealed the endoskeleton underneath, I thought was a nice ending to Carl. And it was given to Sarah a last moment of retrospective and respect to this Terminator who essentially did ruin her life. But for the most part, how that or why does or how does Grace know that or that a truck was about to come plowing through a big wall? I don't understand how she knew that. Was she psychic? I mean, a lot of this shit is not explained, folks. But for the most part, I will admit that is some entertainment value to the fights, to the Terminator sequences and whatnot. I fully acknowledge that there is entertainment value there, especially the underwater bit where you see the Rev 9 fighting the Terminator or fighting Carl, or T-800. I thought that was also pretty cool and whatnot. I mean, there are some great scenes. I just believe that there was very bad writing. So yes, Dark Fate is one of the worst ones in the franchise, if not the worst. However, I do acknowledge that it does have some pros to it. So moving on to the final topic, because I do want to try to keep this under 8 hours, or 8 hours, 2 hours, I mean. My Terminator sequels. I did this during the Terminator discussions with back in the day with the panel that I had, Chris Knight and them, as well as Marissa, I do believe, my friend Marissa, as well as I did my own video on how I would do a Terminator sequel. Well, it's 1997. It shows that Judgment Day doesn't happen because Sarah Connor and John fled to Mexico after destroying Cyberdyne and destroying Uncle Bob. However, the arm is shown to be in the crushed thing to still have survived. In the and unfortunately, backups were created for Skynet. So instead of August 29th, 1997, Skynet is thereby pushed back, and Judgment Day is pushed back till 2000. Yes, Y2K happens. Except it's Judgment Day. Marissa didn't join the panel, I remember that. All right. But she still, which unfortunate, or was unfortunate. She had serious augmentation, so she heard the truck. All right. Okay, then that makes sense. But yes, as me, how I would do it, it's Y2K as Judgment Day. John Connor is almost 15 years old, but before that happens, 1998 swings around. Sometime during 1998, another Terminator shows up. And another T-1000 was sent back to go after, or to try to find, or not to find John Connor, but to ensure Skynet was, or to ensure that Judgment Day happens. And the Terminator that is sent back for for future purposes, we'll just call him T. Oh my God, August 29th, 1997 was the date Netflix came online, by the way. Oh my shit, that's fucking hilarious. But T is set to, or is tasked with, in the past, to gain weapons and build a bunker. So there is a Terminator that is sent back to 1995 shortly after the the destruction of Cyberdyne and whatnot. And he is to spend the next 5 years creating an out for John Connor and them so that they can live, him and Sarah Connor, so that they can live through Judgment Day, because Judgment Day is inevitable. And also there is a fight because it does learn of John Connor's location. John Connor is going to, or John Connor was, or there is, or was detected over the border by a drone or by a surveillance and whatnot. And so the T-1000 abandoned its job in DC to go after John Connor. However, it was destroyed in 1999. So in 1990 or 1999 is when part of the movie takes place, in which it was being, or in which the T-1000 would go after John Connor, and it would be destroyed by a well-placed custom RPG head. Instead of being an explosive tip RPG head, it's an acid-filled RPG that once it hits a solid surface or a liquid metal surface, it would disperse an acid shower. And so when the Terminator shows up, it tells him, "Come with me if you want to live." Reminding them, "Oh shit, why are you back? What happened?" And it explains, "I am not the Terminator sent back to protect you, or I was not the Terminator sent back to protect you. I am a different model. I am here to ensure your survival against Judgment Day." And they're like, "What do you mean?" "I am here to bring certain people to this area to survive Judgment Day." And so when they get to the bunker that he was making, you find that there are several people, and yes, Kate Brewster will be among them, to have survived. And he explains Y2K is the new Judgment Day. Skynet is already activated, and he is not yet brought into military, or it was not yet brought into military applications. So in 1999, Skynet is later brought into military applications, thanks to the work that the T-1000 was doing while at Washington, D.C. It ensured that events would happen to introduce Skynet to the world in military applications before or inside of the month of December of 1999. So yes, they're like, "Why can't we just prevent it? Why can't we go to the, or why can't we go to the or to DC?" And the Terminator explains it. "If you step foot in American soil, you will be detained. I cannot protect you if you cross that border." So they have to let Judgment Day happen. So then the end of the first movie, Judgment Day happens. Or not the end of the first movie, but the middle of the first movie, Judgment Day happens. Cut forward 15 years later. You have an adult John Connor, who is now 30 years old, 2015, and he is fighting the war with a now older Sarah Connor. And a Terminator, T, has also survived. And so the battle is happening. They are planning their engagements against Skynet and whatnot, and they are essentially going through the motions. And the end of this movie, or the end of the first of the two sequels, would have John Connor finding a prison encampment in which Kyle Reese is found. However, they are managing to get Kyle Reese out and the other humans out. Unfortunately, a stray shot goes through Sarah Connor, as well as T is also destroyed on this mission. Or, now that I'm thinking about it, T could actually survive the mission and carry Sarah out of there, but it would or unfortunately the first movie ends with what's your name? Kyle Reese. And it's a shock ending. Well, then the next Terminator movie would start. They would give you a brief montage and the future it's now 2029. Skynet has been or 15 years later, the war has continued, and John Connor is now basically he's fighting alongside Kyle Reese, and they have learned of the time displacement equipment through a mission that takes place at the beginning of the movie. It's like, are you kidding me? This is exactly what has to happen. And it's like, or he's talking with T, who is now an aged Terminator due to the living tissue aging and whatnot. And he tells him, I have no choice but to send him back, don't I? Yes, you have to send him back. Otherwise, you will cease to exist. It has to be a full circle. You were unable to, or you couldn't prevent it because it would have turned out that you would have destroyed yourself if you had. And he's like, well, which of these Terminator, or when do I send you back? Or when do I send you back? You don't send me back. You send me, or you send the other me back. That would have been a joke line, a small little humorous line. He's like, well, then are you on the same assembly line? Yes, you send 2 T-800s back. The date you send, or during the final assault on the time displacement lab and whatnot, that's when T actually gets terminated. And during the time that they are getting ready, you will also see, or in the sequels, you would also see the original Terminator, get sent back to 1984. You would also see a T1 or the T1000 prototype being injected into a living tissue mass, or just this mass of living tissue, like this sack of living tissue. It would be injected into the living tissue mass, and then it would then be pulled or sent onto the time displacement equipment to be sent back as well to 1995 to find John Connor. And you would also see Uncle Bob being sent back after he has been, or Kyle Reese being sent back, as well as Uncle Bob being sent back. And then you would see him reprogramming, or you would see John Connor reprogramming T, or programming the new, or the T that was there. And you would and he would send him back to the date that T informs him to send him back to, and give him, or you would also see him tearfully giving him those orders: protect these people, save me, and ensure my survival for Judgment Day. So yes, John Connor is wishing that because he's adamant that he can prevent, if he can try to prevent Judgment Day in 1998 or 1995, great. But having T in the past will also help. So he'll send him back to 1995 as well, just a different time of 1995, so that he can begin his work there, you know? Now, yes, there are flaws because T2 does have that Terminator recognized. So I could rework it to have a different Terminator looking like them or looking different. And it's like, why do you not look like the other Terminator? The T Model 101 is too recognizable. So yes, I could change it to where there is another Terminator that looks different from the Model Model 101, which is Arnold Schwarzenegger. I could have a Model 10 or Model 102 that looks like The Rock or something like that. You would have a different Terminator that goes back to 1995 afterward. So those are my thoughts on how the Terminator sequel should have been. It would have been a twofold, and it would have been a full circle in which John Connor has to survive Judgment Day, has to find Kyle Reese, has to, or then spend the events of the last movie fighting the war up to the point where he sends them back. And it would come full circle. And he would have to make hard choices. So yes, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Those are my thoughts on the Terminator franchise. The movies are good to certain degrees. They have their ups, they have their downs. They have their flaws, they have their absolutely huge flaws. And they also have their entertainment quality as well. So that's going to be the video. Thank you so much for tuning in, folks. Thank you to Vanya, Neozoic, Jet Sparks, Biggles, and Davian, Pierce, Vanya, and the rest of you all. Thank you to Janet from Another Planet for coming on, or for dropping in. And stay tuned for next week, where I will be discussing, I believe, it is the Harry Potter franchise. But let me confirm it here. Tuesday theme stream list. It is, yep, the Harry Potter franchise. So that will be coming next week. It will include the Magical Beast movies and whatnot. So it's not going to be categorical like I did for this one. I wanted this one to be categorical because of the Terminator sequel idea that I did. But yes, I will be doing all of those pretty much as a hodgepodge. My gripes and whatnot, as well as my likes. But with that, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. And tonight I will be on the Barroom Podcast with Jacob from Society Reviews. We'll be discussing some topics. Hannah Gutierrez Reed sentencing to be one of them, as well as a few others. And we'll also be talking about that movie Civil War, which I will be an outsider. I will not be discussing, or I will be discussing the movie, but not as one who has seen the movie. Anyway, folks, tomorrow is Ones and Twos on Mara's channel, which is going to be the singles on Jade Shadow, the channel for Jade Shadow. 8 p.m. for Lethal Weapon 2 discussion. Singles are on Thursday, 8 p.m., my channel, as well as X. At 8 p.m., we'll be discussing From Paris with Love with John Travolta. Great freaking movie. And Friday is going to be the shit show for our Janet from Another Planet's channel, as well as Orange Hat Uncensored on my channel. Anyway, folks, thank you all so much, as well as the weekly review with Nerd with a Cigar on my channel on Sunday night at 8 p.m. Sorry. Now, folks, thank you all so much for tuning in. This has been Orange Hat. I got to get outside and get some work done. You all have a wonderful day, and always remember to stay humble.